Hi guys, Assalamu alaikum. Welcome back to episode 7 of Mumdane. Thank you so much for coming. It's been too long. It's been so long. As you guys know, I was sick for a while there. And I was sick for a pretty decent amount of time. It wasn't anything serious, but we did have like really bad coughs right around the time when coronavirus started happening. So it was a pretty big scare. So but yeah, I mean we didn't have coronavirus, and like one of the main reasons we know that is because we were sick for way too long, like far longer than what a person who was sick with coronavirus would be. But anyways, we did have other symptoms as well. It was definitely not the coronavirus, but we were sick for quite a while, the whole family, and it did bring us down, and it took us a while to recover, myself included. So yeah, I'm just so glad to be able to do, and I think there was a point in between where I just reached a point where I was getting a little bit too comfortable staying off screen. The whole situation with everything going on, it can bum anyone out. It's a really difficult situation to be in, especially when you have young kids who need their daily dose of being outside. It can get to be a bit much for anybody. So anyways, thank you so much for coming, and welcome. So today's topic is actually, so before I start, I'm gonna, like I've said before, this video is going to go up on YouTube, so I'm gonna ask you guys to tilt your phone sideways, and I'm just gonna do the same. Okay, there we go. Let me just adjust that. Okay, that's fine. So today's topic is about pregnancy and childbirth. I'm not going to pretend to be an expert of any kind. I'm not. My field of studies is not in pregnancy and childbirth, but what I can share with you guys is my experience and how it's been for me, and having been brought up in Saudi Arabia, in the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia, there are certain things that tend to be, maybe let's say, easier, but there are things that tend to be a bit harder or in your journey of pregnancy and having a kid, the whole of it. And there's quite a bit that I wish I was told, I was informed of, I was aware of before I had my child. First of all, if you do live in the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia, there's a wonderful group called Pregnancy and Childbirth in the Kingdom. It's on Facebook, and I highly recommend that you join it. It's a wonderful forum full of doctors, doulas, people with a lot of formal education behind their knowledge of pregnancy and childbirth. And it's really wonderful to have a community where you can go to with your queries, your questions, things that, especially when you are a first-time mom, a lot tends to freak you out. So at a time like that, like even if it's like 3 a.m. in the morning and you need to speak to somebody, you need somebody's advice, someone's always online in that group. I'm not an active member anymore, but at the time that I was there, that I was online actively on the group, there was around 7,000 members. But it's a good place to start. But then again, you do always need to do your own homework when it comes to having a child. Like anything, it's always best to be prepared. But in this country, I would say more so, because consent is not something that they always take. They are more like, do something and then tell you later if you ask. That's the general mindset in most hospitals here. So that tends to be a bit of an issue. So again, like I said, I can only share my experience, but if you do want a better, broader understanding, then I would recommend, I mean, if you're in Jeddah, then you have Noor, who's a doula. You can reach out to her. You have Sumrana, who's a childbirth educator. You can reach out to her. She provides classes. I did attend one of her classes. I will get to that. So my journey started in, so I got married in, I got married in 2014, and I got pregnant with my daughter when I was when we got pregnant with our daughter when I think 6 months into our marriage roughly, and I didn't know much, and in hindsight I think both of us would agree that we would have liked to have been better prepared in terms of what to expect, I guess. I mean, there was a lot that came with being pregnant that we did not know and we were not prepared for. And in hindsight, I mean, there definitely are things we would have liked to change, but then again, everybody's hindsight is 2020. So, but yes. But one thing that did help me tremendously, especially when you're a beginner who's just trying to get into, who's trying to understand everything from the beginning, from the basics, you have, there's a really wonderful book, What to Expect When You're Expecting. A lot of people do know about it. It's a really common book. So that book really helped me basically get my sea legs, understand what's going on. It gives a really nice introduction. Like every month you get like basically what to expect each month. So with my first pregnancy, it was really rough. The first trimester was absolutely horrible. I was vomiting at 6 a.m. and 6 p.m. on the dot. I couldn't keep down anything. My husband would try to bring me different kinds of foods. I remember one time he got me pizza from Sbarro because I hadn't eaten anything all day, and I just took 2 bites, and then the oregano smell just got to me, and till today it's just not something that I can stand. So I mean, it was a really rough first trimester. A lot of vomiting, a lot of sleeping. There wasn't much I could do. I was averse to almost everything, especially the feel of raw meat would just have me hurling. It was insane. We were on a vegetarian diet. I could eat cooked meat, but I couldn't eat raw meat. So it was really crazy. Onions, I hated. I could not stand onions. It was really bad. So there were a couple of really weird things that I was averse to. I did have a couple of strange cravings. So I am generally not a person who likes Asian food because of the level of spices that I used. I can't tolerate it. But since my pregnancy, during and since my pregnancy, the first one, I just love Asian food. Asian, and when I say Asian, I mean South Asian food, like Indian and Sri Lankan food. I love it. It's just like a thing for me now. But up until then, I had very low tolerance for it. So that was a very new experience. And a lot of the things that changed me during my pregnancies, it kind of stuck with me afterwards, which is pretty strange. I found it to be very interesting, like how, your journey into motherhood, it does permanently change you, and I found it to be very interesting. And then by the second trimester, so I was a person who throughout, for over a decade, I never gained weight. So when I started to put on the pregnancy weight, it was too much for my body, and I got varicose veins. I got really bad sciatica down both of my legs, to the point where I could hardly walk, and things got really bad. And usually for sciatica, what you are advised to do is that you are advised to walk So the more you walk, the less the pain gets, and like, it helps ease it out. But in my scenario, it was the opposite. It was the complete opposite. The more I would walk, the more the pain would increase. But then again, I mean, it was my first child, and I was hoping for a vaginal birth. So it was a bit like, I really wanted to have the head engaged. And especially when it's your first time, you are more freaked out, more paranoid. Obviously, the first time in anything, you just like, you are really incredibly stressed. And me and my husband, we tend to take a more natural approach towards things. We like to, usually we like to take an unmedicated and natural perspective on things. So for us, we really, really wanted to try for a vaginal birth and unmedicated as well. And I mean, there were a couple of people who did find it to be a strange thing that I wanted a pain-free labor. That's not to say that I was underestimating, or I would think that, I'm going to be able to bear the pain. I did, to an extent, understand that I was going to be in a lot of pain during my labor. But I also knew, I mean, I'd done my homework. Again, studying up, it really changes things. It's a game changer. A lot of things, sometimes, especially in hospitals here, they don't tell you a lot of the side effects. They don't tell you how things could affect it. And I have noticed this multiple times. Hospitals here don't really like a well-equipped patient, because that way they can't really do as they wish. So but then again, it's not really fair on the patient to not really understand what's going on. I mean, I'm not saying don't trust your doctors, and doctors I even know. One of my best friends is a doctor, and I do trust doctors, and doctors are doing an amazing job right now with everything going on with the coronavirus. That's not at all what I'm saying. But what I am saying is that it always helps to know where you are coming, like what's happening to you. So when you go to a hospital, when you put your life in somebody else's hands, I wouldn't say just close your eyes when you do that. I'd say know what's going on around you, know what's happening. So in that sense, not only are you empowered, but it also, I mean, why would you not want to know what's going on with your body? Why would you not want to know what somebody is doing to your body, regardless of how experienced or not? I mean, yeah, I'm not, again, I'm saying, I'm not saying don't trust them, but I am saying know what's happening to your body. You need to know what's happening to your body. Like, you do have hospitals and doctors where they would say, okay, this is what I'm going to do. Are you okay with that? In which case, they are informing you beforehand. But that's, again, like I said, it's not the case here. And I don't think it's the same where I'm from, Sri Lanka as well. They don't prefer a well-equipped patient. So knowledge is truly power, to be cliche, but but in all seriousness, it did help me a lot throughout my pregnancies to know what exactly was going on around me. So I was consulting with a doctor here. She's amazing. I really loved her. But then I had my sciatica. I was in a lot of pain throughout the pregnancy. It was just really, I was absolutely miserable. I hated everybody around me, including my husband. I couldn't stand his smell, and it happens to a lot of women where through their pregnancy they are unable to stand their husband's smell, and I didn't know about it, but I just felt bad to tell him anything, so I didn't. I had no interest in eating, but then, and I lost a lot of weight that first trimester. Second trimester I gained a bit. That's when the cravings started to kick in, and by the third trimester I was never really big, or I never really showed as much, but I mean I thought I was pretty big because I was mostly waddling around. And some things that really helped with the onset of labor with my daughter was duck squats, and you look as silly as it sounds, trust me, but I mean, I kid you not, but it really helped. I started doing it 2 days, 2 continuous days, and then the third day I went into labor. And so the way my daughter's thing happened was, I had gone back to Riyadh to be with my mom, I think towards the end of my 8th month, towards roughly, yeah, like give or take a month. And I was with my mom, and then my husband would visit me. He was here in Jeddah. And so the morning of the labor, the morning I went into labor, I woke up at around, I'm thinking 5. It was pretty early. It was before Fajr actually, so maybe like 4, 3:30-ish, 4, something like that. And I wanted to use the washroom, and I did. And while I was actually, the past couple, like the days up until then, because I was nearing my due date, I would actually, okay, TMI, but then again, so is pregnancy and childbirth. While I was peeing, I would look down just to check, just so that I know if something's happening and I'm missing it. And sure enough, I lost my mucus plug. And then I freaked out. I mean, first pregnancy, and I was pretty young as well. I had my daughter when I was 21. So I'm so sorry. I'm so bad. I'm so bad with remembering things. So, and then I started shivering. I was seriously freaking out. And then I took a couple of deep breaths, and I knew I was as ready as I could have been. But then, when things do start happening, they do tend to freak you out. So I got up, washed myself obviously, went to my mom, and I'm like, I lost my mucus plug. And my dad cannot handle pressure. I mean, it's a running joke in the family. Yeah, he can't look at a pregnant woman, which is ironic because he has 3 kids. He wouldn't let me sit next to him. Like, I mean, we would be as a family, but I can't really sit next to him. So he freaked out. He's like, oh, let's go to the hospital. I'm like, no, I have pains, I have cramps, but they're really mild. They're very much far apart. So I'm going to labor at home for a bit. So, and that's what I did. But he was like super stressing me out. So what we did immediately was I called up my husband, and I'm like, oh, Rizwan, my water broke. So he didn't answer on the first call, and I got thoroughly pissed, like, dude, I am in labor. But then he answered on the second ring, and then he's like, what? And my mom's like, just give me the phone. And she took the phone, and she's like, this is the scenario. Her water has broken, but she's still in the early stages of labor, so you have time to come. So he had already packed his stuff, and he was like ready to go at a moment's notice, which was super convenient. And I think apparently I don't know too much about this, so don't quote me on this. There is a kind of flight ticket that you can buy where basically the dates are flexible. So he had one of those as well. I think he bought it like 2 or 3 days before I actually went into labor. So then what happened was, so he's like, okay, I'm coming. So he just like got ready and all of that, and like he was basically on his way to me. So I labored at home for 2 hours, and I had these really it was one of those IKEA rectangular cushions, and I used it throughout my pregnancy. I'd never used a pregnancy pillow. I didn't feel the need for it, but that cushion was like my thing. So I was like hugging it every time I was in pain, things like that. I didn't use a birthing ball the first time, but I had that pillow with me. So, and then gradually the pains increased, and then my parents are like, dude, no, we're gonna go to the hospital now. So 2 hours after my water broke, I was gradually more and more in pain. So we went to the hospital, we checked in, they took me in, and then they took me to the ward. I was alone. Like it was a private room. And then I had like 3 doctors come in, 2 gynos and 1 pediatrician, and there was one gyno who was a proper asshole, who was in such a hurry to force me into delivering before my gynecologist actually would come. I think she was just looking for a payday. Even looking back, it was clearly for a payday. So she was really trying to push me into induction. But the one thing that really, see, when you are in labor, you are not in a situation to fight for yourself. But the one thing that was amazing for me was my birthing plan. So I prepared a birthing plan. I spoke about it with my gynecologist here in Jeddah before I went to Riyadh, and it was unheard of for anybody and everybody around me. Like, why the hell would you write up on a piece of paper why would you do that? But it was amazing. Like, nobody was willing to sign it and give me consent that they were going to follow through with it. And my gynecologist in Riyadh was not too fond of it, but she did like how prepared I was. And I took like 3 copies when I went with me to the hospital. And the other thing I did was I prepped my mom and my husband really well. And everything in the birthing plan, I will share the birthing plan with you guys. So everything in the birthing plan did say, like, you can't do this or this or this without consent from my mom or my husband. So it was really great. It basically fought my battles. And then so then these doctors were really pissed because I have a birthing plan, and they're like, oh, what is this? She doesn't want painkillers, she doesn't want induction, and then and what happened was I was not progressing from 2 to 3 centimeters. I wasn't progressing for over an hour. So they were like trying to rush my mom. And then my mom's like, can you please wait and see? And then she's like, how long do you want us to wait? She got pissed off. And then my mom, being like a really calm, my mom is the complete opposite of me. If it was me in that situation, if it was my daughter, I would have blasted her ass. But my mom is like really calm. So she's like, let's just wait and see, kind of a thing. And then what happened was I did progress. Like, I walked a bit around the hospital room. So they do say, and a lot of practitioners do say that lying on your back is not the most natural way for you to deliver. But in my case, in both of my deliveries, I was most comfortable on my back. So again, this is something very subjective to different women. A lot of things, like the way you carry, the how much weight you gain, breastfeeding, not breastfeeding, it's different from women to women. But then again, you do have aunties who go like, oh, drink only milk during your pregnancy and you'll have a white baby. Those people just need a smack on their head, because milk or the color of the food you eat has absolutely no impact. I can't believe I even need to say this. The color of the food you have has no impact whatsoever on anything that has to do with a child, and it's obvious. And if you don't know that, please go back to school. So that being said, where was I? Yes, so I walked around for a bit. My husband came by then, and at this point I am screaming for an epidural. And I'm like, Mama, please, I need my epidural. But I did tell her that I will beg her for it. So she was prepared. But they did give me gas. I forgot what it's called. I forget now. Anyways, they gave me the gas. And it was pissing me off because one thing, it had no effect on me. But also I didn't want anything touching me. That was my, I just felt like my body was on fire and I didn't want anything on me. So I'm like, Mama, please. And Mama's like, yeah, we'll get it for you. And then I was like, oh, shall I get it? And then my mom's like from behind my head, she's like, no, don't get it. So my mom was like, she was amazing. And then my husband comes in, and he's like, oh my god, what's going on? Like, he legit freaked out. And then I hit him a couple of times. And then because he was asking me to take the air, and I'm like, stop it, like, you know, this is not working for me. And I couldn't say it. So in my case, like, my scenario is the more pain I'm in, the less noise I make. So I couldn't tell him, stop it, it's annoying me. So I just like smacked him a couple of times. And then he's like, okay, let me go pray. So then, like, he did go to pray, and he's like, I'm gonna be right back within 5 minutes. But what happened was, within the few minutes that he was gone, I just progressed so fast, and the baby was born as well. Alhamdulillah, I'm really glad that my gynecologist was there by then. They did a couple of sweeps, which was so absurdly like hurt. I mean, I was in a lot of pain when they did it. These were the gynos who were trying to induce me, but at that point, I was not in a position to say don't, because I couldn't say anything, and my mom, I don't know if she knew as much or whatever it was. But when I did actually have my kid, my gyno was there, which was, I mean, I was really happy about it. She was less money oriented. So, and then, like, I had minimal, I think I had like I needed 3 stitches. And then they, like, you know, they took me off to the room. I did tell them that no formula is to be given. It's only going to be that my kids are going to be exclusively breastfed. And alhamdulillah, I had the first time, like, with my daughter, breastfeeding was a nightmare for a month. I was crying. I was so willing to give up. I was wounded. I was bleeding. I was bleeding to the point where my blood would come out in her stool. It was so much blood and so many tears. But alhamdulillah, my husband was very encouraging, which was a really big support for me. And then my mom was there. I was with my parents for like the 40 days postpartum. So my mom was really helpful with everything. So that was also really, really nice. So yeah, the birthing plan really helped. And but what happened the second time around was I did go back to Riyadh. I went back actually in my 9th month. Yeah, like I think the first week into my 9th month. And I went to the same gynecologist, but she all but threw my birthing plan out of the window. She's like, nope. And we freaked out because we wanted delayed cord clamping, which like, you know, we thought was what was right for us. It was the main thing, delayed cord clamping, and we had a couple of other things. Again, you know, it's subjective. People may or may not agree with us. I'm not going to get into it now because it is a Pandora's box. But anyways, one of my most important things for me was delayed cord clamping. She agreed to it with my daughter. She didn't give it to me when the time came. Like, as soon as I gave birth, I'm like, please, like, with all of the energy I could muster, I'm like, please give me delayed cord clamping. And she's like, you just keep quiet and let me do my job. And I did not have it in me to fight for it. They did not allow my mom to, like, she was in the room, but they partitioned her off during the actual moment of, like, my daughter coming out. So she couldn't say anything either. My husband was praying. So in that moment, there was nothing more I could have done. So I was like, okay, I tried my best. My son's birth was a very interesting event. So the entirety of, since my 8th month, I would have so many Braxton Hicks. I actually got a yoga ball, a birthing ball, and I would bounce around it a lot because I was having so many Braxton Hicks, and that was the only thing that was helping me with my Braxton Hicks. So with him, my pregnancy itself was really bad. My last 2 months, I had to sleep sitting down because of severe acid reflux and vomiting. Sciatica just, like, it extended like crazy. Sorry, not sciatica, the varicose vein extended like crazy. The sciatica was back on one leg, but double the pain. Yeah, and I still have the after effects of it. So it was pretty, like, I would say it was worse with my son than with my daughter. And then so like, I mean, it was there was so many Braxton Hicks, there was so many false alarms, that, you know, at one point, like, you know, so what it was basically like the boy who cried wolf kind of a situation. So my due date was the 20th of September, and we know not to go by due dates, we go by the month. But I did have an appointment on the 19th, and like I said, with his pregnancy, I was like so worn out. I tested positive for Toxoplasma IgG, which really drained me psychologically, because I had not even come in contact with cat poop, so I don't know where it came from. I don't even have a cat. But I did test negative for Toxoplasma IgM, which was a relief. There were so many hiccups along the way that really, it really drained me. So towards the end, by the 19th, I'm just like, get this baby out. I was done. I was so done. So when I did go in for my appointment, but she did not take my consent. She did a sweep, and she opened up my cervix. Again, like I said, no consent taken whatsoever. Same gynecologist, no consent taken. So it really, I mean, at the moment, I'm like, yeah, fine, whatever. But I mean, that baby could have stayed there for another week or two. And before that, right before that, like 2 weeks before I had the baby, I had a really crazy episode of dizziness, where I could not stand from the bed, and if I did, I would throw up. It was that bad. And when I went to the hospital, there was a really horrible Indian doctor who's like, you are going to deliver right now. So because I was at 37 weeks at the point, 37, 38, between 37 and 38 weeks, you are going to give birth right now, so you need to take the lung maturity injections. And I'm like, excuse me, no, I am not in labor. I am not going to have the child right now, so no. But then, like, they had already unwrapped the first injection, so they're like, but we unwrapped it, now what? So I'm like, throw it away, but charge me for it, because I am not going to put that into my body. And she also had another injection available for the, also unwrapped, for the dizziness. I'm like, I'll take the oral tablets, I'm not going to take the injection. So yeah, then she's like, but we have to charge you. I'm like, do whatever the shit you want. If you want money, that's fine, but I'm not going to inject that into my body. And I actually did, I'm sorry, I'm just like all over the place, but I did remember there was a really nasty Sri Lankan doctor as well, when I was having my daughter, and she sauntered in, like, she's an emergency room doctor. She sauntered in when I was in labor, and she goes through my birthing plan, and she's like, are you a medical student? And I'm like, no. And she's like, oh, you've done your internet research. And she walks out, announces to the whole, so there was only me and another lady in labor at the time. She like shoutingly, that's a word now, announces to the whole room that, oh, she's done her internet research. I mean, and the sad part is my mom actually knows her. Like, thank God she doesn't know her that personally. My mom does not move with shitty people like that. But she's met her a couple of times, and she did recognize my mom. She's like, oh, she's done her internet research, which is really demoralizing. I mean, come on, a woman is in labor and you're going to behave like this? Aren't you supposed to be a doctor? Aren't you supposed? Oh, anyways. So with my son, I had like pains throughout, which was really, there was so many false alarms. And then I had the dizziness episode, all of that. It just like built up and everything, and I was done. So she did her sweep, and that night I was in labor, but I didn't realize it. I was asleep. But then I woke up at 5 or around 6, and I'm like, I woke up Rizwan. I'm like, Rizwan, I'm in labor, wake up. And he's like, are you sure you're in labor? Like, are you sure? I'm like, dude, I am in labor. Can you please go and get mama? Like, you want to maybe? I'm like, go. So then he goes. At the same time, my dad was going to use the washroom. So he's like, I think she's in labor. And my dad's like, let's go to the hospital. And then I'm like, no, let's just can you just help me get to the sofa first? So then they helped me to the sofa, and like pains are like rapidly increasing at this point. And then I realized that, okay, I had been in labor since last night, since she did the sweep. So then I lie down on the sofa, and like pains are increasing really, really fast. Like within the next, so like I rapidly progressed, and in 2 hours I was fully dilated. So like I'm like trying to tell them that, okay, I need to get to the hospital, and my mom's like, okay, but you haven't really bled, there's no mucus, there's no water, I'm like, dude. And again, like I said, the more pain I was in, the less I communicated. So I kept quiet. So they thought I wasn't in pain, but the actuality was I was in so much pain that I couldn't tell them. So, and then like I'm like thinking, how can I tell him in a way, like he was by me, he was right by me, I'm like lying down on the sofa, and my feet were on him, and I'm like thinking, how can I tell him in a way that he'll understand like the level of pain I'm in? And then so the way that I was, the AC was coming right onto me, so I'm sweating, and he's like, whoa, because it was really chilly. I'm like, I'm sweating. And then he calls my mom, and he's like, I think I think it's time to go to the hospital. And my mom's like, so this is like around 2 hours in, like since I woke up. And my mom's like, okay. But she didn't eat since she woke up, so I'm just making, we have this kind of a porridge thing called kanji. She's like, she didn't eat since she woke up, and I'm just making kanji. Let me just pour the milk. I will take it and go. I'm like, dude, take me to the hospital. So she goes. So she takes her abaya off, and she goes to the kitchen. And the moment she goes, my water broke, and it just like flooded. It was like, it went. And like my husband had been drinking, like my mom comes and gives him a cup of tea, and he's drinking and he's slurping it. And I kid you not, if I had the strength to move my legs, I really, really, really wanted to spill it all over his crotch. I kid you not, that's all I wanted to do. But then my water broke, it whooshed out, drenched him, and I started screaming. I'm like, the baby's coming. Oh no, I said my water broke, and then he just jumps up and he tries to carry me, and I'm like, no, wait, the baby's coming. So let me have the baby, and then we'll go, because I had like really strong urges to push. So what had happened essentially was my water broke, and I was fully dilated, and I lost the mucus plug all at once. And then he's like, he closed my legs and like, no, the baby's not coming. And he carried me, and then my dad was out enough. Like I did not see him run, but I've never known him to run that fast. And if you've seen my dad, you'll understand. So my dad opened the door, opened the gate, and then opened the car door as well, like within under a minute. My mom comes, rushes in, and she had the good consciousness to grab her wire, and she also grabbed a sheet, which was really good. And I actually did have excess fluid, amniotic fluid with my son. So my husband carries me, and he's like, I need your help, to my mom, and my mom helps him. They rush me to the car, and I'm like, I told you so. And to this day, it was the best I told you so of my life, and I still do use it. It's been 3 years now. And then they put me in, like he puts me into the car in the back seat. My mom's like at the floor, the leg part of the back seat. My husband's sitting shotgun. My dad is driving. My dad is freaking out. But then at that point, I had the urge to push, and so I did. And alhamdulillah, I'm so grateful. I mean, I say it and it sounds so nice and fun and easy, but I'm so thankful that There weren't any complications, there weren't any serious developments. There's so much that could have gone wrong, but it didn't. And I do not advise anyone to try this at home. Again, it was a complete accident. But honestly, I wouldn't have had it any other way, because we were scrambling to find a doctor or a hospital who would give us our delayed cord clamping and everything that we wanted, and we couldn't find anybody. So it was amazing that I got 15 minutes of delayed cord clamping, and I got to try to rub the vernix into the child. I tried to breastfeed the child didn't take it, the child just fell asleep. But I mean, I at least tried, and I'm satisfied that I attempted it. And then we reached the hospital. It was like it's a 10-minute drive from home. Reached the hospital, and they called the emergency, and my husband's like, she gave birth in the car. And they're like, what? And then they come, 2 lady nurses try to carry me. So I'm like not wearing a abaya, I'm just wearing a nightgown. They tried to carry, the placenta was still in, the baby was on my chest. They tried to carry me and it didn't work. My husband tried to help, it didn't work. My dad was off throwing up. Oh no, he wasn't. He clarified later that he was not throwing up. We thought he was throwing up. And then they're like, ma'am, is it okay if a male nurse comes? I'm like, do whatever you want. I don't care. So this male nurse comes, and he and my husband carry me, and they put me onto the stretcher. And then they wheel me off, and like 1,500 people are staring, and I don't give a shit. They take me to the emergency room, and this niqabi Saudi doctor, she comes running for her paycheck, cuts the cord. And I just told my husband, like, I know, like in that moment, I know if I send my husband with the child, I am totally screwed. They're so going to mess me up. But I'm like, just go with the child, do whatever you have to do, what we agreed on in our birthing plan. So and by the way, he was barefoot the entire time. He goes off with the child. My mom is with me. This psycho, again, this is going to get a bit TMI, sticks her hand in and peels the placenta out. And I'm begging her, I'm crying, I'm like, please stop, this is not right. And at that point, I was already, like, generally after both of my births, I went into shock. So I had already started like shivering and like really like generally the shock symptoms. And I'm begging her, I'm like, this is not right, please stop, let me breastfeed the baby and it'll come out. And she gets pissed off and says, do you want to live forever with the placenta inside? And I'm like crying. And then finally my mom's like, can you stop? This is not right. And then while she's doing it, then, she's yelling at the nurses for letting her gown come onto my bloody mess. So, like, she was just very unprofessional. And then what happened was, she really traumatized me. She wanted to stitch me up as well, and I was like, nope, I will wait as long as needed until my gynecologist comes. And when my gynecologist was informed of it, she's like, yeah, let her wait. And then she comes in and she's like, who told you to give birth in the car? And I couldn't stop laughing. I'm like, I didn't really do it on purpose, but and then she's like, what? I'm like, do you think I did it on purpose? And it's like, no, it's not that, but like blah 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 blah. And then they gave me some antibiotics, and it was unnecessary, but I couldn't really fight it at that point. And yeah, I mean, that was my the story with my son. She was like, I waited till my gynecologist stitched me up though, which was truly it was a good decision. She was pissed off, but I didn't care. And then like my son was referred to as the car baby for the duration of our stay. They didn't let us check out one day after, like as is usual for a vaginal birth. They made us stay forcefully for an extra day because insurance. So, but we stayed, and I was like, yeah, fine, whatever. It didn't really make a difference to me. And then the Sri Lankan doctor from my daughter's delivery, she comes and she's like, are you from Sri Lanka? And we're like, yes. And I want to communicate and tell my husband that she is the asshole, but I can't. So she comes, I'm like, yes. So he thought she was Indian. She's like, why did you delay the vitamin K? And I'm like, oh, we did our internet research. And my husband was super pissed off. but it gave me the closure that I needed, because I am very petty like that. And yeah, it really gave me the closure that I needed. So yeah, anyways, we got discharged, we got home. Took a while to recover, but I suffered from severe postpartum depression, which is a topic for the next session, inshallah, which is what I want to address. But yeah, that was my pregnancy and my childbirth story. I know I've gone way beyond. I've gone up to like 45 minutes, which I had promised that I wouldn't do, and I'm so sorry for it. But thank you guys for joining me and for listening to me just go on and on. Thank you for giving me a portion of your day. I'm so grateful to you guys for letting me do this. And yeah, I will. My kids are banging the door, if you can hear, which means I really do need to go. But thank you again from my heart. And yeah, I will see you guys in 2 weeks. Assalamualaikum. The story will be, like, the whole video will be available on YouTube soon, inshallah.